What if the United States went to war against Israel? What if one of the most unlikely scenarios in global geopolitics became reality? What if the United States, Israel's greatest historical ally, went to war against the nation it has helped protect for decades? Today we're going to explore this extreme hypothesis, analyzing what would need to happen, what the consequences would be, and how the world would react to this unimaginable conflict. But be aware, this is a purely hypothetical, geopolitical analysis exercise. Let's begin. First, we need to understand, this is practically impossible in today's reality. The United States and Israel maintain one of the strongest alliances in the world, based on strategic interests, shared democratic values, and deep historical and cultural ties. But for this scenario to work, we would have to imagine a series of extreme events. Radical political changes in both countries. A complete transformation in American leadership, with a government that completely breaks with decades of foreign policy. An unprecedented diplomatic crisis. Perhaps Israel would take an action considered unacceptable by the international community. Something so serious it would break all ties with Washington. Extreme international pressure. The entire world forcing the United States to act against its traditional ally. Even so, the probability would be microscopic. But let's imagine it happened. The conflict begins, and the world goes into shock. From a military perspective, we would have an absolutely asymmetric confrontation. The United States has the largest military force on the planet, with a defense budget exceeding $800 billion. Israel, although it has one of the most advanced and efficient armies in the world, simply could not compete in scale. But here's the complexity. Israel possesses unofficially recognized nuclear weapons. And when a nation with a nuclear arsenal finds itself cornered, the Samson option doctrine comes into play. The idea that Israel would use all its destructive power if its survival were at risk. On the diplomatic front, the chaos would be absolute. The UN would enter an existential crisis. The Security Council would be paralyzed. How to deal with a superpower attacking a small democratic country? NATO would fragment. European countries would be divided between their transatlantic ally and their own policies. In the Middle East, the consequences would transcend the battlefield. Economically, the markets would panic. The Middle East is the world's energy artery. Any conflict in this region drives up oil prices, but a US-Israel confrontation, that would be an instant global economic crisis. Geopolitically, we would see a complete realignment of world power. Russia and China would take advantage to expand their influence, presenting themselves as alternatives to unstable American leadership. Arab countries would be in an impossible position. Some would celebrate, others would fear regional instability. The global Jewish diaspora would enter a deep crisis of identity and loyalty. Within the United States, the division would be catastrophic. American Jewish communities, pro-Israel evangelical groups, and entire political sectors would revolt. Massive protests, possible civil disobedience, an unprecedented social fracture. And here we arrive at the most terrifying element, nuclear weapons. Israel possesses an estimated 80 to 400 nuclear warheads. It has never officially confirmed or denied this. If the country found itself facing conventional military defeat against the United States, the calculation would become existential. Would it use these weapons? Against whom? American bases in the Middle East? Would this provoke American nuclear retaliation? And how would the world react to the first use of nuclear weapons since 1945? The ladder of nuclear escalation would be unpredictable and apocalyptic. Other nuclear countries, Russia, China, France, the United Kingdom would need to decide, do they remain neutral while nuclear weapons are being used? Or do they intervene to prevent the Holocaust? This would literally be the scenario for a possible Third World War. So, what did we learn from this disturbing mental exercise? That some alliances are so deep, so intertwined in mutual interests and shared values, that their rupture would be almost impossible. The US-Israel partnership was built over decades for strategic, economic, cultural, and moral reasons. More importantly, we learn that we live in an interconnected world where conflicts between major powers or their allies have immediate global consequences. That's why this scenario remains in the realm of speculative fiction, and we should all hope it stays that way. Thank you for watching. Leave in the comments, what other unlikely geopolitical scenarios would you like us to explore?